fruit. And we've been growing Nellie Kelly passion fruit for 102 years. So we have a little bit of history behind it. Passion fruit is a subtropical plant. And basically for us to have success with passion fruit growing in the southern climates, we need to graft the vine. And so we graft onto a cold climate rootstock, and that cold climate rootstock gives us a vine which will survive extremes of temperature, the cold and the heat. It will also make the vine more vigorous. It will allow the vine to put up with more issues about disease and things like that because it is a vigorous growing vine. The other value about a grafted vine is that it will give you more cropping because of the vigour of the plant. One of the issues that you can find with a grafted vine is that the understock or the rootstock can sometimes get away. Now, we show on the back of our labelling how to deal with that, and the best way to deal with rootstock on a passion fruit vine that will shoot away is to use a sharp knife or blade to cut off the offending shoot. If you tend to pull the shoot off or rip it out, you'll tear the root structure and will send up multiple suckers. So sometimes you can read on a blog where someone will say, I've had a terrible experience, I started pulling out passion fruit suckers and I've got passion fruit suckers all over my garden. It is because they didn't cut it off, they pulled it out. Basically, the grafted vine will give you longevity as well, and you'll tend to get about 8 to 10 years of fruit production from your grafted vine. So again, that's the value of having a passion fruit vine that is grafted. Basically, a passion fruit vine, a grafted passion fruit vine will take 12 to 18 months to fruit. So the best time to plant is the spring now. Planting your passion fruit out now will ensure that you'll get fruit the following summer. Now, when you're planting the passion fruit, it's important to find an area that is going to get full sun, an area that is probably protected a little bit from the wind, an area that is going to have ground that's not going to be too coarse. You've got to have ground that's a bit more loamier, where the root structure can get through the ground. If the ground's too coarse, the rootstock will tend to fracture and send up some suckers. So always important to plant in an area that has got some loamier ground. Up this way, if you can't find that, it's probably better to put it in a raised garden bed with some good potting mixing. When you're planting your passion fruit, it's important to ensure that there's enough fertiliser in the ground, and the best fertiliser for passion fruit is a fertiliser that's high in nitrogen with some traces of iron. So chook manure, blood and bone, or a synthetic fertiliser like you can buy off the shelf, as long as it's got a high nitrogen content and a trace of iron, will do the job for you. Once you've planted out your vine, you just need to make sure that you've got a strong trellis. The vine itself will probably cover, when fully mature, anything from 4 to 8 square metres, and will be quite heavy. And if you don't have a strong trellis, once the vine starts to fruit, obviously you're going to have your vine fall over, and you're not going to be able to get yourself a successful fruiting vine. During the summertime, as that fruit is starting to ripen, it's very important to ensure that you keep the water up to the vine. Now, the passion fruit vine, as I said before, has a wide spreading surface root. So it may extend 4 or 5 square metres from around the base of your vine, but only go down 2 or 3 inches. So it's important to get enough water into your vine over a wide area to ensure that when the fruit develops, it develops enough pulp. Now, if you take passion fruit off a vine, you find it doesn't have enough pulp, it's because the vine hasn't been getting enough water. So that's always a telltale sign about your watering regime. We will see the passion fruit vines flowering towards the end of spring. So in November, your vine should be full of flowers. Those flowers will start setting in early summer and start developing into the fruit. The warmth of February and March will ripen your fruit, and that'll be the time you'll be able to pick off your passion fruit that's fallen on the ground. So that's when it'll change colour and it'll be right to eat. Going forward, what you'll find is that over the winter time, any fruit that does develop on that vine won't ripen because we won't have the heat there to ripen the fruit. So when we get to late August, early September, it's the best time to give your vine a prune, and basically at that time, by removing a third of the growth of last year, will enable the vine to be opened up. The pruning will encourage the new growth to come out. It'll be the new growth that will support the flowers and the fruit. At the time of pruning, best to put another dose of fertiliser around the vine, and again, that fertiliser being a fertiliser high in iron and nitrogen, and you're set to run for another year. Now, some people tend to come back with a story to me that one year I had a fantastic crop, the second year I didn't get a fantastic crop, and it'll come back to the fact that I forgot to prune. So if you don't prune your vine, you're not going to get the new growth, you're not going to get the flowers that come on the new growth, you're not going to get the fruit. So
when you're pruning, the existing
so
runners, you just cut them back a third.
yeah, so look, it's important that if we look side onto the vine, we'll have the trellis here and we'll have the overburden of the vine. It's just best to cut off the face or shear the face of the vine and leave the main runners that are on the trellis to stay, take off any dead leaves, and that's how to do it. It's quite simple. So just shearing the face of the vine, remove a third of the overburden, and you're back in business. Yeah.
Exactly what I needed to know.
Yes.
I've got wire going
Yes.
across the fence, so
Just removing the face
The
of
stuff
the
that's in front of it.
overhanging,
Okay.
and don't interfere with what's attached to your trellis work. Just remove the face of that
that's
vine.
what I'm always scared of, cutting the wrong thing, and
Yeah.
the main branch doesn't shoot the cut.
Yeah. So basically, that will ensure then that you get the new growth for the following year. Now, as I said before, you've got to do that 6 or 8 times over the life of your passion fruit because you're going to get 6 or 8 years of productivity out of a grafted vine. Basically, a grafted vine is far more suitable to get best results in the climate south of the tropics. A seedling passion fruit will be susceptible to all the things that, for the reasons why we do graft. Cold weather can knock it off. It won't have the vigour to produce stocks, lots of passion fruit. You have one frost and it'll kill it off. I'll just put a little clause in on the side that if we had 7 or 8 frosts in a row, a grafted vine may not survive that, because it's just been of the way it is.
But it will survive,
Yeah, and so up this way, you have, let's say for example, you have 1 or 2 frosts in a row. That's fine. But if we had 10 days of straight frost, that might cause us all some problems, but would also cause some problems to everything else in the garden.
Yeah.
But the rootstock is there to ensure that we have the vigour and it has the ability to put up with the cold weather. So
I put mine on a trellis, but against a tank.
yes,
Because I thought the
concrete
tank,
tank or metal tank.
a polytank.
Polytank, yeah, good.
And because I thought the body of water, it won't freeze, so
Yes.
you ameliorate the temperature a little bit.
Yeah, good thinking. Yeah, that'll work fine. And again, yeah, no, around a tank. In the good old days, around a tank stand, around an old shed or whatever was the ideal place to plant the passion fruit. Going back to just the fertilising of the plant, I can't stress enough how important it is once a year, once you've pruned, use that fertiliser that's high in nitrogen with a trace of iron, you'll have great results. Blood and bone's ideal, and if we go back, cow manure doesn't have the nitrogen and the trace of iron required for the passion fruit. So the chook manure or the blood and bone is ideal. You may have heard many years ago when people would plant a passion fruit, they would put an ox heart or a liver at the base of the vine. Yeah, and that's because
Is that a good idea?
yeah, that's because both are high in iron and nitrogen. And so, yeah, and years before we became a little bit more sophisticated and had lots of different fertiliser options, a liver, an ox heart or whatever was always planted at the base of the vine to give you that nutrition.
It was hard to get this time.
Yeah, well, we don't have the local butcher with the ox heart in the window, do we? And that's the problem. So basically, looking after a passion fruit vine is quite easy as long as you just follow those simple steps.
So prune after summer
Yeah, so once,
and feed.
yeah, so basically what we're looking at is that we'll prune the vine once we get into, we'll go back a step. We'll prune the vine early in September, so last week of August, first week of September is ideal. Remove all the old growth, you'll see a lot of yellow leaves there from the winter, and remove a third of everything else.
So it's too late to do that now.
Yes, and the reason why, if we prune the vine now, we're going to end up by getting flowers coming in January or February, fruit starting to set in March. We're not going to have the warm weather to get the fruit to ripen. So the real key of setting up your passion fruit vine is prune last week of August, first week of September. New growth will come up in October and early November, which will support the flowers. Those flowers will then be fertilised and turned into fruit, and then we've got the advantage of the warm weather of January, February and March for all that to ripen.
Feed now.
No. So if you haven't fed, leave, because all you'll do now is disrupt that whole process of the vine. So pruning, feeding now, a little bit too late. If you give you an idea, if you fed now and your vine was starting to put flowers up as it should, the flowers will drop off because the vine isn't probably hungry enough, it's a bit lazy, flowers won't develop, or they'll develop and they'll fall off before they can
So
set.
should it still produce fruit having done the pruning in the season?
You're going to struggle to get a good result. So if we go back a step, a good healthy vine that's been maintained properly and pruned properly and whatever could produce you anything between 400 to say 800 pieces of fruit per season. Now if you haven't pruned, you may see 50 or 100 pieces of fruit because you haven't encouraged the flowers to come up. Okay? And so that's the key.
I think we only planted ours last year, didn't we?
Yeah, so with yours, you may have seen maybe some flowers come up or some immature fruit come up early. It's really this spring you'll start seeing the flowers developing October into November, then the fruit setting in the summer. So, but the real production of your passion fruit vine really happens 18 months down the track. So if it's you may get some pieces of fruit, but you're not going to get a full crop.
Yeah. And I probably only got last year was the first year about 20.
Yeah.
But had I known, I would have pruned it after winter this.
Yeah, so the pruning is the key,
Yeah.
and that's what sets you up for the summer. And again, if you're not going to do that or you miss that,
Yeah.
you actually do miss a season of production.
I might get one or two, but that's it.
You're not going to get a lot.
Well, I thought I did all right last year with about 20.
Yes. Well,
They're pretty yummy, aren't they?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
so-
put them straight in the freezer.
Yeah, and it's a good way to do
And
it.
then when I need them,
Although I must admit, we went somewhere, stayed at a hotel in Queensland, and their passion fruit was so much better than ours.
where that?
Oh, I don't know, they were huge and so much full of the,
Pulp.
Oh,
Yeah, and so some of those varieties
Probably
that
because
you may have got in Queensland might be the Panama passion fruit, which is the size of a duck egg, much bigger size passion fruit. We graft Panama Red and Panama Gold here to enable you to get those varieties down here as well. The key with what you saw in Queensland is that the Panama Red and the Panama Gold will grow profusely up there without being grafted because of the weather.
yeah,
And so that's the key. So we've got to have horses for courses.
yeah, oh for sure, yeah. Yeah, no, they're pretty, love our passion
That's good.
fruit. Yeah, they are.
So taste-wise with the Panama, because I haven't had one of those, I always just go for the Kelly. What are they like?
So
It's really sweet.
yeah. So the traditional black passion fruit or purple passion fruit really has that passion fruit tang to it.
Yes.
To get to the Panama passion fruit because of their bigger size, sweeter, but also they just don't have the bite or that tang of a really good smaller black passion fruit.
Yeah.
So there is a difference in just in the bite or the tang with them, but basically lovely passion fruit.
Any difference between red copes better in the cool or
Look,
yellow?
it's an interesting thing that we tend to find that the golden passion fruit, the Panama Golds, tend to crop better than the reds, but really not much difference in the taste. So if you wanted a Panama passion fruit and you wanted lots of numbers, you probably just go for your Panama Gold. But as far as taste goes, not much difference between the two. And you know, the only other thing is that the red passion fruit, as it's ripening, is a really delightful looking fruit. As I said, it's the size of a duck egg, red with a yellow fleck through it. You know, quite an attractive fruit. And as you saw in Queensland, it's on a cheese platter or on something else. You know, the outer skin of the passion fruit also looks very attractive.
So does it drop like the black passion
Yes,
fruit?
it will. Yeah.
Right, and that's when so you
Look,
don't pick it, you let it drop?
there's two things. The traditional way of getting passion fruit is when it drops,
Yeah.
and it's because the passion fruit has got to a certain size, it's ripened, the stem starts to shrivel a bit, and it'll drop.
Yeah.
But you can also go and pick your passion fruit off the vine if you need to, and just use a pair of seconds to cut the stem.
Feel the weight.
Yeah, or the colour.
Yeah.
So if you walk out and you see your vine full of purple coloured passion fruit, you know it's ripened. Why wait for it to fall? It may suit you better to go and pick it then than wait for it to fall. Or if you don't pick it, you may have the issue of the local flock of cockies appearing and sitting on top of your vine and knocking them all off before you get a chance. So,
That's good.
but yeah, the tradition we would wait till the fruit would fall on the ground, but when it changes colour, you know it's ripe. And so you can go and pick it off then.
So you prune before the frost or after?
So basically what, up here, I guess,
In August, that's right.
yeah, but up here too, you may be in a situation where you still might get a frost in
Yes.
October.
Yes.
By still pruning in August, you still have got the issue of where some of the new growth is only just going to start developing. The frost, even if it comes, if you get a late one in October, is not going to be as much of an issue as what you would think. It really is important to prune late August, early September. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That was great.
That was good. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming and being such knowledgeable people on passion fruit. I appreciate that.